Hey everybody, this is Tim Wolf. This is a part 2, and I'm talking about the copyright board submits a 44% songwriter streaming royalty increase, and I started going into the background and I realized that I was kind of going over my time, and so I decided to cut it off and make a second video. And so I was talking about how radio stations changed, ownership changed, and it became corporatized and centralized. And so it became the 1%ers and the 99%ers. And so the big players, the big artists with big major label backing could get play on radio. And so it became a lot less diverse. And you had the 1%ers so you had the big winners, and then the middle class basically got hollowed out because of that. And then another reason is probably even bigger is that a lot of those 2,700 songwriters that I mentioned in a previous video, that 15 years ago in Nashville, which is a big songwriting town, there were like 3,000 full-time songwriters. Now there are only like 250 or roughly in that range full-time songwriters making a living just writing songs. And one of the changes was the change of the radio that I described, where it became decentralized and 1,500 stations instead of just 15 max. Also, streaming became a thing, and I did a video recently talking about Spotify, and a lot of those 2,700 songwriters didn't write hit songs, but they wrote album cuts. And so they were a middle class of songwriters. Maybe they didn't write a lot of hits, but the songs I wrote were included on albums, CDs, what have you. Well, album sales have tanked over the last 15 years. And instead, what's taken over in the US has been streaming. And so people don't stream whole albums. They stream the hit song. So the 1% got even more of the 1%, became more of a division between the haves and the have-nots. From that standpoint, songwriters are just hollowed out. They can't get those album cuts, because if you got a cut on an album, by law you're decreed to get 9 cents per mechanical rate for every sale. And if that album sold 1 million copies, you got your 9 cents for every 1 million copy, even though people may not have been buying the album because of your song. They were buying it because of the hit songs, but yours wasn't a hit, but you still wrote along. Well, now that people aren't buying CDs or records anymore and they're streaming it, 85% of the revenue in the US comes from streaming, that middle class is gone. Those album cuts are gone. I mean, yes, albums still exist, but not the volume and not the money making that it was. So songwriters have been hurt. And you know that when a song is played on the radio, the only entity that gets paid is the songwriter. And the band doesn't get paid. Only in the US though. Other countries it's different. So in the 70s and 80s and 90s, when radio was king, and people listened to songs on the radio, songwriters made a killing. You know, it's the Who. Peter Townsend wrote all the songs for the Who, and Roger Daltrey was the lead singer, but he didn't write any of the songs. And he was quoted as saying a few years ago that he has to keep working and touring because, unfortunately, he doesn't have that songwriter money. Peter Townsend was the songwriter. I mean, who thought of that in the 60s when they were a young band, smashing guitars and whatnot? They didn't think about who was on the songwriting. So that's how it was, and now it's changed, and songwriters are squealing because they're used to being able to make money from radio play and from CDs, deep cuts on CDs, and now they're not making money, and boy, there's a lot of complaining and whining, and maybe some of it's rightfully so. It's a new world though. So when the copyright board decided to up the rate for songwriters, and it was, if I can remember the numbers, it was about 4.8 to 1. So if for every $5.80 of revenue that Spotify paid out, $4.80 of that went to the labels, and for every dollar that went to the songwriter. And the new rate was 3.72 to 1. I believe it was 3.72. So for every $4.72, $1 would go. So the ratio went up. It went up by 44%. I mean, it was about 10% of the total revenue. Now it's 15%. So, or not quite 15%, 40%, or 14.4%, let's say. So 10% of the total revenue, now it's 14.4%. So that's a 44% increase. 44% of 10 is 4.4. Add that to 10, so it's 14.4%. So that's where the 44% comes in. And it's welcomed by songwriters, but is being fought by Spotify. And I think it should go through. I think songwriters deserve to get paid, but it hasn't been decided yet. And a lot of songwriters are very angry at Spotify because they are trying to boycott Spotify because Spotify is resisting songwriters to get paid. Meanwhile, Spotify is saying they're not making any money yet. So who's to know? But I do believe that should go through and songwriters should be paid. That's my opinion. See you next time.